Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today I'm shaking things up with the McFarlane Digital No Man's Land Batman, including a few head swaps, and more importantly, how to fix the cape. Starting with the packaging, and once again we have a McFarlane Digital box. They're released under the DC Direct line, and in terms of names and logos, it doesn't get more direct than this. This Batman is based on his look from No Man's Land, well, more or less, but we'll get there when we get there. The back features some beautiful artwork. It was taken from the cover of Detective Comics 733 and was exquisitely painted by Phil Winslade. If only they could squeeze that information somewhere on the box. For those who enjoy overspending on action figures in-store, here's the UPC. For packaging, No Man's Land Batman gets 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and let's open them up. So, yeah, once again it's just the modified version of Nightfall to accommodate a soft goods cape. To the top of his scalp he stands at 7 1/8 inches, or about 18 centimeters on the dot. Nightfall might just be the best basic Batman body McFarlane's made, so it does make sense to reuse it for different costumes of the same character. As a collector and a reviewer though, it can get a bit repetitive, especially when a lot of the time the main difference from figure to figure is just how dark the blue and gray is. The ironic part is I actually do really like the dark color scheme. It reminds me of the Comic-Con edition, which I know a lot of people missed out on. In fact, it's pretty much what I was hoping the Justice League Task Force version would have been, and those dark blues perfectly match Dick Grayson Robin, which is going to come into play later. The only newly sculpted pieces for this figure are the head and belt. At this point in the comics, Batman had an oval bat butt pouch belt combo. While that bright yellow isn't exactly inaccurate to the comics, I do wish they had gone for something a bit more muted, kind of like this Year 2 Batman. What is inaccurate, however, are the trunks. At this point in the comics, Batman had actually ditched them. In fact, we were already seeing that in action figures like this 1996 Total Justice Batman. And you know what? This color scheme is actually pretty similar. I'm conflicted though, because I do prefer this costume with the trunks. That said, the head is new and I love it. Based on the taller ears, this is actually closer to my mind's eye of what a Nightfall Batman should look like. There are definite similarities between the two heads, but something about the shape of the face and the jaw just works better for me. You do see a little bit more of his nose than usual, which some people might not like, but I'm okay with it. And while there's not a lot of head swap options with the dark blue, I'm definitely hoping I can find the all black version. In general, I kinda like the sculpted logo of the original Nightfall better, but to McFarlane's credit, this painted version is very vibrant, and that yellow really stands out. My only major criticism is the cape, mainly that despite being soft goods, it's not wired. I know that's really more of a thing I would normally talk about during playability, and believe me, I will, but without any wire to shape it, it just juts out to the sides looking flat and cheap. If they weren't going to give it a wire, they might as well have just used the actual Nightfall mold with that plastic cape. Failing that, they could have at least used a heavier fabric that would have draped better. Obviously, I fixed the cape, which I'll demonstrate later, but factory fresh out of the box, and for presentation, I'm giving No Man's Land Batman 3 points. If you're enjoying this video so far, do me a favor and give it a like. Moving on to Poseability, and I think we know what to expect from this body by now. As always, and his head is on a dumbbell joint, Batsy can look up into the night sky this high for perspective, and here's looking ahead, and he can look this far down. He's got a side-to-side tilt that most Batman actors would have been envious of, and of course can look all the way around. Unencumbered by a plastic cape, and Batman can raise his arms this high, and gets complete rotation at the shoulders. Of course, we've got that nice unidirectional rotator cuff, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow with a deep dark knife bend, and wrist balls that do all the wrist ball things. Move into the middle, and No Man's Land Batman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. He can arch back this far, which is more than serviceable. For comparison, and here standing straight, and to his credit, this body does give a little bit more hunch forward than usual. He's also got a great side-to-side tilt, and of course, twist. Below that bright yellow utility belt, and Batman has the standard McFarlane hips. He can only kick this high, which admittedly is a little bit low for Batman. This far back though, which is pretty cool. And of course, a near perfect split. Very good amount of rotation in the hip, along with a double jointed knee with a pretty deep bend. And then moving all the way down, we've got toe articulation and ankle balls that can swivel, hinge, and like Nightfall Batman, from blue and gray to a slightly darker blue and gray to black and gray to a pixelated blue and gray to the darkest possible blue and gray, and now to a slightly less dark blue and gray. pivot. And again, that's not all of them. Thanks to a better than usual hunch forward for Poseability, Batman gets 5 points. Moving on to Playability, and the accessories for this figure should also come as no surprise. As usual, we have a trading card and a figure stand. Flipping it around, it actually does give a short synopsis of what No Man's Land is. Additionally, with this figure being a McFarlane Toys digital, it comes with this card. That gives you a scratch-off you can use for a digital version of this figure for an online showroom. As I always say, this isn't something that personally interests me, but if you like it, more power to you. Otherwise, and in total, Batman has a pair of fists, a pair of accessory holding hands, and this tried and true batarang. It fits snugly in either hand, and to be honest, these hand options and batarang should probably be standard for just about every Batman. Once again, though, my biggest issue is the lack of a wire in the cape. To really illustrate my frustration, consider Earth 2 Robin. Not only is he part of the digital line too, he's also just a repaint of Nightfall Batman, and just like No Man's Land, his only new parts are his head and his belt. Now, his gloves are a bit different, but I'm pretty sure that's reused from a different figure. The more important thing is that not only did they give him a wired cape, Robin got alternate hands, the same standard issue batarang, plus an alternate head, all for $4 less than this Batman. I know that's partly a conversation for price, and believe me, we will have it, but giving us less for more is the kind of thing that affects every aspect of a figure, but especially playability. Fortunately for No Man's Land Batman, playability is more than hands, cards, and capes. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with the rest of the Justice League, and the other half of the world's finest in particular, and here's Atomic Skull 2-pack and Walmart versions of Action Comics 1000 Superman, along with Hush and Silver Age, which I'd point out is also a digital figure, but got a wired cape. That said, since this is a 90s Batman for that Grant Morrison JLA era, here we have Superman Red and Blue, classic and hook hand versions of Aquaman, Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner versions of Green Lantern, and in the absence of 90s versions, regular old collector edition Wonder Woman and the Flashpoint version of The Flash. Veering into villainy, and here we have Rebirth and Silver Age versions of the Joker, collector edition and Arkham City versions of the Penguin, Nightfall and Arkham City versions of Catwoman, classic and Arkham City versions of Riddler while we wait for the upcoming Hush version, along with regular and Platinum Edition versions of Two-Face. For other members of the Bat family, and here's Dick Grayson and Tim Drake versions of Robin, Nightfall and Better Than Batman versions of Nightwing, and Platinum Huntress with Cassandra Cain Batgirl, who made her debut during the No Man's Land arc. For just a few other DC Multiverse Batman body types, and here's Rebirth, Year 1, which shares a lot of parts with Rebirth, but is still enough of its own thing, and the blue and gray version of Hush. For a relative scale comparison, here's No Man's Land Batman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. As for head swaps, I do want to wait until I find the black version to do the motherload. For me, the bigger curiosity is a cape swap. Because of the matching fabric and engineering, I recommend using the Platinum Edition of Dick Grayson. Normally, you'd have to heat this up with a blow dryer to soften the glue to pry the neck piece off. Mine, however, popped right off when I tried swapping heads. From there, it's just a matter of taking the cape you want and threading it over this peg, and then re-gluing. That said, may I humbly suggest an alternate option. As you can see, the seam is open, so instead of tracking down another figure to swap capes with, let's just add some wire to this one. For this project, I picked up some floral wire from Walmart. It's 20 gauge and comes in a pack of 30 18-inch pieces. Just shape it along the seam and snip off the excess, and then carefully sneak it through the seam. You're going to want that one long loop instead of having two short pieces, otherwise it's going to flop around. From there, it's just a matter of lining everything up and gluing it down, and voila! Never having done this before, I'll admit it's a little bit gappier than I wish it was. Even so, just look at the difference being able to get that cape to hang naturally makes. Not just hanging, but dramatic posing in general. Don't get me wrong, you could go the cape swapping route, but $1.50 at Walmart for some floral wire just makes a lot more sense. That said, for those interested in head swaps, here's No Man's Land with the Comic-Con head. If you look closely, the blue is a little bit different, but the shading really helps to hide that. Other way around, and that difference is slightly more obvious. Still, I think you can see what I mean about those longer ears being perfect for Nightfall, and in general, I still really like it. The combination that I'm more interested in is the blue and gray version of Batman Reborn. Once again, there's a slight difference in the blue, but it's barely noticeable. Swap the forearms along with the trunks and belt, and with a different head and a little paint, you'd also be on your way to a pretty sweet blue and gray hush. For this example, I used a digital version of Rebirth. To be honest, this is even more encouraging than I was expecting. My enthusiasm for customizations aside though, and for playability, I'm giving this Batman 3 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price, and once again I'd like to draw a comparison to another figure, in this case the Marvel Legends Fantastic Four She-Hulk. Now, I've heard people say that it's not fair to compare Marvel Legends with DC Multiverse because one is a 6-inch scale and the other is 7, but the Marvel Legends She-Hulk body is 7 inches, meaning that she's a lot more plastic than the average Legend. That said, this figure, just like No Man's Land Batman, is a repaint, but it comes with an extra head, 2 dumbbells, and 4 extra hands, all for only $24.99. Do you realize just how far you have to go to make Hasbro look like the generous one? Hasbro, who's charging $40 for an action figure just because it has a magic card? Hasbro with their $50 maximum Spider-Man? Hasbro, who's charging $80 for Mephisto. I get that we're living in a time of economic uncertainty, but if a company as notoriously greedy as Hasbro can pull this off for $25, there is no excuse for this to be $28, especially when other repaints of this exact figure came with so much more for so much less. And I know some of you might point out the digital token, but once McFarlane's made the file, I can't imagine it's costing them any more unless people actually redeem it. My guess is the vast majority of people collecting this line don't. And frankly, unless prices go down or the value goes up, a lot of us are going to stop collecting it altogether. For price, I'm giving No Man's Land Batman 2 points, averaging out to a not so grand total of 3.4 out of 5. Agree? Disagree? Sound off in the comments and let me know if I've been too harsh or if I'm right on the money. And you know what? This video ended up taking so long to make, I actually ended up finding the platinum version. Definitely expect a head swap showcase and maybe even a black costume Batman versus. For more Batman videos while you wait, check out one of these. And until next time, play nice and have fun.